All right. Today's topic, we're going to discuss communication with our special guest. I'll let her introduce herself. I'll call her Emma. Uh, what do you call it? Emily? Emma?
Emanuela or Emma, whichever
Emma.
is easier.
And she wanted to discuss communication and the relationships she's having, exploring her spiritual connection, mental connection, and physical connection. Can you go into describe this communication?
So I kind of wanted to explore that through communication. So if I allow myself to spiritually connect, I have to somehow communicate with myself, right?
Right.
However I choose to do that is up to me.
Mm-hmm.
So if I allow myself to connect physically, I have to tell you through communication what I need and what I like and what I don't like. Mm-hmm. So really being honest to the ideal of communication. So if I'm going to communicate with a human being, I want to tell you everything. I don't want to just say, hey, you made me feel good and that's it, which is great. But I want to tell you not only making me feel good, but I want to tell you how you made me feel. Mm-hmm. Versus just saying you made me feel good.
So what do you attempt to explore in this communication? Is it a greater level of understanding of self, or is it a greater connection, or all of the above?
I feel that it's all of the above. It brings myself in a space of consciousness. So there's never a subject matter where someone could come back to me and say, well, you never told me, well, I never understood. And if there is, then there needs to be more clarity on my end or towards the subject matter. So the more I communicate, I find that people in my experiences are able to understand me better. So before I communicated one or two dimensional, right? Mm-hmm. Where I was able to tell you I'm happy, I'm sad, or not tell you at all. Now I find myself in a space where I'm going past the how I'm telling you how I feel. Now I'm communicating through energy, shared shift energy, not just through words, right? Because there are layers and levels to communication.
Right. So how do you determine which people you will communicate with? Because they're all different type of people.
Agreed.
And you spoke of energy, so you have good energy and negative energy, as you have positive and negative in life. So you don't want to communicate with any and everybody.
No.
You only want to communicate with people that you know are receptive of how you feel, not necessarily to be biased towards that, but you only could communicate with people that understand where you're coming from.
Yes, I agree. There are people who come in my space where they are not necessarily the people that I want to be around, so I excuse myself, or they weed themselves out, I should say. Mm-hmm. And then there are people who, because not everyone, just because they don't understand that way of communication or shared energy, does not mean that they're not wanting to experience that experience. Sometimes there are people that I communicate with where I didn't know that I was going to have a profound experience. I think there was an older gentleman, I should say, I met 2 days ago. I never seen this man in my life, and he was an older gentleman because he was a full Silver Fox gentleman, and he was older. But he sat next to me, and we were having a dialogue, and one of the things that we talked about was being able to recognize what we wanted at one point in our lives is not how we are really going to. We're not going to get into it the way we imagine it to be, right? So being able to sit with a total stranger and have a dialogue, I think people are afraid in some cases to connect with other human beings, maybe out of fear of not knowing and people being judgmental. But the more I interact with people that I don't just personally know, but I interact with strangers, the more I find that I'm more in a loving and safe space because there's clarity, there's truth, there's honesty, and there's giving, and there's without judgment. So when I say communicating, not everybody communicates through energy, right?
Right.
And not everybody is positive. But if you're someone who's exploring that space, then the universe, or whatever you want to call it, the higher power, will bring that into your space or take that out of your space. And then it will bring like-minded people who communicate in that frequency.
Now, you spoke of energy and higher power. Are you more of a religious like Christianity or Muslim? Or are you kind of self-defining your own spirituality as an African spirituality? How do you define this higher power? And where do you fall within the topics that I just described?
Okay, so I've never had anyone ask me that. So I never actually gave it an identity in a sense of, I never gave it an identity in the sense of like, I am this and I recognize and see this and this is the type of religion I'm in. I grew up religious. As I got older, I find that I was more diving into a spiritual self-awareness connection, believing that God lives within all of us. God is us, right? That concept. So I never gave it a label to say that I specifically am Buddha or, I follow that Buddha practice or I follow an African practice. I think I just explore myself as a person, which indirectly for me, I believe that it brings me closer to my God. Whatever that may look like to someone else is someone else. But for me, I feel that the more I connect with myself consciously, then the more I become powerful and evolve myself as a goddess of whatever I choose to desire it to be.